On this episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, we have on Outdoorsman, entrepreneur and songwriter Scott Hunt. Scott's had various cryptid and paranormal experiences. Stay tuned as we dive into this episode. Before we get started, if you've had an encounter, an experience, something unexplainable, or if you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email with your contact information at thecryptidcrewpodcast@gmail.com. I would like to welcome our guest, Scott Hunt. Scott, thank you for coming on.
All right, thank you.
I know we have talked just previously a little bit. But if you can tell our guests what got you interested in the world of the unexplained, were you interested as a kid or young adult?
Yeah, as a kid in elementary school, I was always reading books like Stranger Than Science and all these unexplained things, you know, because I know there's a lot of unexplainable things that happen in our world today and have been for thousands of years. And so as a child, I heard all these things. And then as a grown up, seeing things on TV and videos, and it just made it a lot easier to get the information, put things together, you know, connect the dots, and hook up with other people that are interested in the same things I am.
Yeah, for me as well. I think I was probably started, I guess, reading or watching different things when I was probably in elementary school at some point. But let's just dive right into this and tell me, I know you'd mentioned you lived in the Cumberland Plateau area, the Cumberland mountain range up in North Tennessee. Yes. But tell me a little bit about I guess your first encounter or your first experience that you had.
Okay. My first real encounter, I guess, would have been around 17 years old when I was living in Alabama and was over at a friend's house. We were just hanging out and we noticed something in the sky and it just looked like a, you know, big orb or balloon or something. And it was, I could tell it was about, 7 or 8 miles away, and it just stayed there. And we were all looking at it. I drove home, got my dad's binoculars, brought them back. We looked at it for a long time, and it just sat there like a silver metallic orb. And it had to be pretty big, because, like I say, I could tell it was a distance away. And then for about 30 minutes, we watched it, and then it just kind of started drifting away and disappeared pretty quick. So it wasn't a weather balloon because it didn't move its position or anything. So that got me, interested in aliens and spaceships, things like that, things I've been reading about. And I met my wife we got married when I was 20, and she's kind of like a medium, sensitive, and so she sees a lot of dead people and a lot of paranormal stuff. So that kind of got me interested in that, and just questioning things that were out there, and doing a lot of research and going down rabbit trails and getting into more and more things. The more you start digging into something, the more you find, and you start searching on those things. And then as I got older, it was about 10 years ago, I saw another large orb flying on a commercial jet, North Dakota, where I was working. And it's probably probably about 25 feet in diameter. And it was big puffy clouds out today, and I saw it move from one cloud to the other and stop, and never exited the cloud. And then another encounter with I had in Georgia a couple of years ago. I was doing mapping down there on a project, and it's a clear day. I was in the woods near the paper mill woods where they grow the trees and stuff, so it's pretty sparsely populated there. And it was like 100-degree day, had the air conditioner wide open, and I saw this. It was some type of black bipedal apparition or a Bigfoot or something. I still don't know what it was. Went across the road in about 5 steps, which would have been about 60 feet. And it just took a couple of seconds
now,
for it to go across the road.
Right. Was that now you said you were in near Americus, Georgia, and you were doing a mapping project. Is that correct? Yes, I do engineering for fiber optic projects that we're working on. So I was drawing up some maps, and it was about 1,000 feet in front of me where I saw it go across the road. The right of ways were clear grass, mowed grass, and I just saw it go across the road in front of me, and I knew it wasn't human because it, 100-degree day, the way it went across the road with a smooth gait and very few steps that I could tell. To me, it takes me like 20 steps to get from one right of way to the other, because my gate's about 3 feet. And so it takes about 20 steps to cover 60 feet. And this thing looked like it just took about 5 steps. Right.
And so I hurried up and drove up to where I saw it across the road at. And there was a game trail there that went into the bushes. So there was a big hole there in the bushes where the game had been going in and out. And so I took pictures of that. I got GPS coordinates of where it was at, just so I would have those for reference.
Right.
And I had a Google Earth screenshot of the area also. And I'd asked other people from the Georgia Bigfoot sites and stuff like that if anybody had sightings over in that area. And I never really got any response. I had people saying following and stuff, but they never, I never had any real good response from that area. But I know, I'd gotten interested in Bigfoot, years ago. My kids, I mentioned that when we lived in Alabama, this was probably about 25 years ago. They were over at their cousin's house, my daughter and my son, and they saw something. They said it was like a gorilla-looking person or whatever, and later on I found out it's called the Alabama white thing. And it's kind of like a white Bigfoot, and it's in the area, kind of like a triangled area from Coleman County, Blount County, Morgan County, up in that area, and that's right where they saw it.
Right.
And there've been several sightings.
Could you tell me
on that?
Right. Could you tell me what time of day was it when they saw that? Now, when we talked yesterday, just briefly, you told me that they did see this, but they waited quite some time to tell you, correct?
It was only about 10 years ago that they ever mentioned it. So they were young. Like my daughter, she was probably 6 or 7, and my son was about 3 to 4 years old. And it was in the daytime. They were over with their cousins playing. And so they never mentioned it until about 10 years ago. And both of them, remembered it real strongly. They have a vivid memory of it, because they were scared of it. And, but they described the same thing. Both of them did.
Sure. Absolutely. After we talked about that, and, on the BFRO website, there's a report. I think it was, the report was made in 2005, I believe, but the incident happened in 1975, and it was a witness report of a white gorilla-like on 4 legs on the side of the road, and it stood up and ran across. The witness report said, and it was in Blount County, in Alabama, but like I said, it was in 1975.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like I say, we were about less than 10 miles from Blount County line, where Coleman County, Blount County, Morgan County all kind of convene right there. And that, like I say, it's in that same area that once I started digging into it, saw that there was like a triangle there.
Sure. What year do you think that was when they saw that?
We moved in the house in 95. So it was around 95, 96, when they saw that one.
Right. What made them think about that? Did anything trigger that memory of the sighting?
We've been talking about paranormal stuff and watching, because when we moved to Nashville, it was in Nashville when they told us about it. And when we moved there, and we lived in an apartments complex there that had an Indian burial mound on the project or the complex right in front of our apartment, and everybody in the apartments right around us had seen an Indian ghost in their apartments. So, we talked about a lot of paranormal stuff, had a lot of encounters. And so they brought that up, just from, remembering that. And like I say, they'd never mentioned anything about it until then. And so that, we didn't know what to call it or anything. I just started looking up and found the Alabama white thing.
Right. That's really ironic, that we had talked about that. And then I was able to find that report. I was just looking in the Blount County, I guess it was Blount County area, the different sightings they had. And one of the reports was the white thing, that had been seen by a witness, while they were driving. So I thought that was pretty neat. Let me go back to the sighting that you had when you were 17 of the orb or the light you saw in the sky. What did it move up and down, or did it move sideways, or was it just sitting still and then just took off extremely fast?
Yeah, it stayed in the same spot for like 30 minutes, and we first thought it might be some type of big balloon that was, tethered to the ground, because, it wasn't moving around. It wasn't going up or down. It was just kind of stationary. And then, and it was metallic. I remember looking through binoculars. It was, silver metallic looking, and it was just round. And then when it started moving, it didn't take long and it was out of sight. So if it had been some type of balloon or something like that, it would have, we would have seen it drifting away slowly, probably, since it didn't move at all for 30 minutes, but it kind of moved off pretty rapidly once it did move.
I had an encounter, sighting. I guess it was probably maybe a year ago. It was a light that just, it set in the sky. I couldn't tell you exactly how high, not a whole lot higher than the trees, but, it changed colors, and I got it on video, and I recorded it for about 45 seconds. It never moved, and it was gone. But we have I guess a flight path. I don't know, maybe over our property. We see military stuff. We see airplanes, helicopters, what have you. That was not any of that I saw. And I also have an app where you can see the planets are on the app, and there was nothing in that general area at the time. So that's, what you saw, it very well could have been something just totally unexplainable.
Yeah. And also when we lived there in Joppa, close to where that Alabama white thing was at, our back of our house faced towards Huntsville, Alabama. And, they have the Redstone Arsenal there. And there would be these three objects that would rise in the sky and just sit there for hours and hours, like three bright lights. And I don't know if it was some type of testing they were doing at Redstone Arsenal, but, we saw them all the time. And they wouldn't, they weren't stars, because they weren't moving across the sky. They would just rise up and stay there for hours. Another encounter we had once we'd moved out to where we're at now, they talked about a meteor shower. And said, go outside and look at it. So me and my wife were sitting out on the tailgate looking north, and this bright light came down stopped above the horizon, separated into 5 orbs or 5 bright lights, and then they just went different directions. We still have no clue what that was, and we're all the time looking in the sky because we're out.
Tell me again. So it was one object that rose up in the sky, or that was already there and then dispersed?
It was an object that came straight down and then stopped above the horizon, and then it separated into 5 objects, and then like a couple of them went east and a couple of them went west, and we still have no clue what that was. That was back before all these apps and everything, but and my wife does have the app on there now, so we know where the planets are at, the different stars, everything like that. So we see things in the sky now that are either bright objects or things that are moving super fast, faster than any man-made object. And she points it up there, and it's not satellites or anything like that. 'Cause we watched the space station go by, we've watched Starlink go by, and we know how long it takes them to go across the sky. And these things are, a small little dot further up, a lot further up than they are, and they move really, really fast. But if, people just don't look up anymore, they're looking down at their phone. They don't, if they're in the city, they can't see the bright lights. So, there's a lot of stuff goes on above us that, people aren't even aware of.
Yes, you're exactly right. I was just about to say that as well. In the city, you've got the light pollution, I guess you could call it, from all the street lights and businesses and so forth in town. But when you live out in the country, it's just, you can see all kinds of things. Yeah,
because we live on top of a mountaintop up in Tennessee that overlooks an 11,000 acre state park. So, there's not much light up there at all. And, it's real quiet out there. There's been, Bigfoot sightings out in our area. One of the bus drivers up there, him and 5 students saw a Bigfoot one day when he was driving the bus. And, that was about a couple of years ago. He saw that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Scott. I'm just assuming that was, of course, a daytime sighting.
Yeah, it was a daytime sighting. Another guy that I met this year, he showed me pictures of a Bigfoot print on his property. They've had the skunk ape smell, and he has a lot of paranormal stuff going on his property. So I think Bigfoots, Sasquatches could be interdimensional being. It could be extraterrestrial. A lot of different possibilities. And I know people, it's hard to get a clear picture of something when they see it. And I think they may be emitting some type of energy that makes the cameras and stuff kind of malfunction. Just like when we were searching on that guy's property, we had metal detectors and both of ours started malfunctioning when we were searching for a grave site that he had found. And we were both using witching sticks, and both of our witching sticks were crossing, at the same time. And so there's a lot of energy in that area. And my wife, about 2 months ago, she was driving home, and we followed the Cumberland River on the way home, and it was a little foggy, and there was something standing in the river, it's towering in the river there. She could see the dark object. It was solid. And she doesn't know what that was, but there's a story of a being called the brimstone booger, they call it. It's kind of like a water being that comes up out of the water that people have seen, and that's in the same area that she saw something standing in the water. And the river is pretty deep out through there, so I don't know how close it was to the shore, because she was by herself when she saw it. But it was, it was in the water, and she could see through the fog that it was, casting a dark shadow.
Right. Let me give our listeners who are not familiar with that area, the Cumberland Plateau. I think it extends. I did a little. Right. It extends, I believe, 130 or or 35 or 140 miles. But yet that runs into the Allegheny Mountains also, which you have Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia. And at some points, from what I understand, it's, 20 miles wide. So you've got probably 350 or 400 miles of mountain range, or sparsely populated, because Clay County and Jackson County, I think Clay County, we talked about this, had around 8,000 people in the whole county, and Jackson County had maybe around 11 or 12,000. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, it's sparsely populated. Like I say, the park that my property overlooks is an 11,000 acre state park, and there's state parks all around there, big forest and all. And the Upper Cumberland Plateau, it's probably 60 miles wide at our area. I mean, it's pretty wide because it goes from Carthage all the way past Crossville, and then it goes, towards Knoxville. And so it's pretty wide right through there. And a variety of terrain. There are some flat areas, but then most of it's, hilly and woods, and, a lot of places that something could hide in there. And it's the same area that Daniel Boone had an encounter in, and he was doing long hunting up there. And him and his son, the natives had stolen their horses, and they went looking for them, and they crossed the river, and there was about 100 natives, so they decided to go the other direction, and was going back and trying to do a little hunting while they were going back. And the son fired twice really quick, and so Daniel Boone went over that way, and there was a hairy man, he said, that had his son up above his head and slammed him on the ground, and then picked him up to slam him again. And Daniel Boone was able to fire and hit him in the eye, and it killed it. And they measured it, and it was about 10 feet long. And said that when he kind of did some exploratory on it, cut it open, and it had like a solid breastplate. It didn't have ribs like we have, so that's why his son's bullets didn't penetrate any organs or anything, because they hit that bone and went around and came back out the backside without penetrating any organs.
Right. That area is rich in history. And like you said, the terrain is extremely rough in some areas up there. And like we had talked about, it's sparsely populated. But let me go back to you had brought up a good topic, the interdimensional, Bigfoot. There's a camp. Yeah, there's a camp. Of course, you got the camp where people think it's a primate, an undiscovered animal, undiscovered primate of some sort. And then you've also got the camp that says, why can't we find one? Why do batteries go dead? Why do these cameras malfunction? Why does this happen? And then you have an interdimensional being of some sort that leaves evidence, but, footprints or broken branches or what have you. What do you think about that? What is your opinion on that?
Well, many believe that there are multiple dimensions, and we could have the dimensions right beside of us, just like with ghosts and everything else. We share dimensions, and then sometimes our dimensions overlap. That's when we may see things that come in and out. So you may see a ghost come out of one dimension and then go back in, and it disappears. So you just see it for a brief time. The interdimensional travel could be something that they know how to do on the Bigfoots, and that's why they'll see them and then they disappear and they can't find them. And the energy that's produced, like I say, it makes the cameras go fuzzy, things like that. And so, I'm not an expert on interdimensional, but I do know there are different dimensions. One of the ghost hunters that I know, he captured on his recorder when he was doing a ghost hunt in this abandoned building, and it said, I hear those voices again. So it's like the spirits were hearing his voice, and to them, he was the ghost. He was the interdimensional being because he was coming into their dimension. So, I think the humans can only hear certain frequencies. They can only see certain frequencies where animals can see, beyond what we see, beyond what we hear. And so there could be beings that are in the room with you, but you cannot visually see them because your eyes can't see them, and you may not hear them, or you may can hear certain noises or, responses from them, but you don't see them because, we're limited to what we can see and hear.
Right.
That's why animals,
right.
they'll be looking at something and you don't see anything there. They see it, but we don't.
Yeah, that brings up a good point, Scott, about the frequencies. I believe it's some cats, big cats, tigers, maybe jaguars or leopards emit a infrasound that we can't hear that stuns their prey. And Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever you want to call it could very well do the same thing and has the possibility possibly of cloaking or either camouflaging itself some sort of way, because there's so many sightings throughout the years, thousands of sightings, and some of them may be fabricated, some of them not. But you got to think the ones that are not, and that are legitimate, somebody saw something. But why isn't there, as much evidence captured as there has been?
Yeah, they have weapons out now, subsonic weapons that you can't hear, but they can shoot that frequency at a crowd. Everybody starts getting sick, throwing up and passing out, things like that, because it's a subsonic frequency. And people, a lot of times, they feel sick. They feel, different emotions, all that kind of stuff when something's around them, like a Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And it could be that they're emitting frequencies that, we can't hear, and it's causing them to feel sick. That subsonic frequency is making them, stop and be just kind of dazed for a while, time to get away or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, you hear people that may have that are out there doing research or going on expeditions, getting headaches or getting sick, and that kind of thing, and that very well could be it. It's hard to say. I want to go transition back to your encounter in Americus, Georgia, and I had seen and read again on the BFRO website there was a daytime sighting of a road crossing back in August of this year, in I believe it was Peach County, Georgia. But tell me, did you went to the spot where you saw it cross, and you said there was a game trail there? Did you find any evidence, any tree breaks or any tracks or anything?
I didn't go look. There was just a hole in the bushes leading into the timber where the game would have been coming in and out. So there would have been tree breaks or limb breaks from deer or anything that would have been going through that hole anyway. But it was a pretty good sized hole. But an apparition, I don't think, would have had to have crossed and went through a hole like that. Because, but this was solid. I mean, it was like it's solid black. And like I say, it wasn't anybody in a suit, because it was a 100-degree day out in a, sparsely populated area. And the movement, where it was smooth, it glided across the road, just like they say, Bigfoot's, their gait is a smooth gait. They don't bounce up and down like humans do. And the number of steps it took to get across the road, how fast it went across was super fast. And
right.
I don't know if it was some type of apparition. An apparition in the sunlight would have been more transparent. This was solid. And I was about 1,000 feet away from it. And for anybody to be in South Georgia in the summertime when it's that hot, running or jogging with a body stone of some sort or a ghillie suit. One of them days you can barely breathe, without the air conditioner on in the car, So nobody would have been wanting to hide in the woods and wait for a car to come by and then try to run across. but I didn't see anything. I glanced into the woods and didn't see anything in the woods where it went. But like I say, that area is nothing but trees for the tree farms, and they're pretty big trees, and so there was no houses, anything like that around.
Right. I believe that is Sumter County, if I'm not, if I'm not mistaken. And there were 2 or 3 reports on that website as well of sightings or activity. But
yeah, it's around the Jimmy Carter
were you able to tell?
Forest and all that. Yeah, it was around, I was working around plains and different areas about 15 to 20 miles outside of America. So it was one of those areas I'd have to double check the coordinates to see exactly where it was at.
Let me ask you, I'm going to transition into something else that you had mentioned to me as well. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's up to you. I'll let you be that, determine that. And it was a July 4th weekend. Could you elaborate on that, or do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. That was at my house, and my house is on the end of a ridge on a mountain that's or I call it a mountain, but it's about a 300-foot drop down to the valley. And like I say, it overlooks the state park, and there's no light source at all on my cabin on that side. It's not like car lights or anything like that because we're on a dead end, but the whole room was lit up. My bedroom was lit up in the middle of the night, and I was frozen. I couldn't move. And, I tried yelling, tried to get my wife's attention, but I couldn't move or say anything. And when the light went out, it was like I was in a vortex, like the room was spinning. And then, I was just sitting there shaking when it quit, being so bright. I don't know if it was some type of, alien encounter or abduction or whatever, because, I just remember the light, but it could have been, if I had been transported out of the room and then transported back in, it could have been what the vortex was, but it was like it was spinning. And my wife has seen a light because I work out of town a lot. She has seen a light while she's been there alone at night. And like I say, there's no light source on that side of the house, and there's a big valley there. So it's not like headlights or something shining in there. And I was unable to move or say anything to wake her up because, I tried, but it was just like I was just frozen, and what do they call that? Paralysis or whatever. And then the light went out. So
right, like in a trance.
Yeah. And like I say, she's seen a light out there, but she covered her head up, and she's, she doesn't want to know what's out there. Right.
I don't blame her. I wouldn't either. But there's been several reports. I've heard lots of reports of people being awake but not being able to move or not being able to speak. And it's just almost like you said, it's a temporary paralysis.
Yes. And then one thing that they talk about with alien encounters or abductions is that they can give you a substance to make you forget. And so I know you've probably seen Men in Black and stuff like that, and they have a little thing they shine in your eyes and you kind of forget or whatever. But they have a thing, it's kind of a milk substance that you drink, and then you get amnesia kind of. So I forgot what they called it, but a lot of people have reported that they made them drink something, and they can just remember little bits and pieces, or maybe when they're under hypnosis, information will come out about them being on a ship, seeing things on the ship, or being, laying on a table and then doing things to them, and they can't move, so.
Right. Have you had anything else happen like that, or did that affect you physically in any way as well after it happened?
Well, I mean, I'm not scared of it, but like I mentioned to you, I'm A negative blood type, which is a rare blood type, and it seems like the majority of the people that get abducted and do these reports are negative blood type people. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I mean, I'm not scared of aliens. I'm not scared of ghosts or Bigfoots. I'm interested. So, I do a lot of research, and I've even got, night vision cameras now that I've bought, and then it has, a 32 gig hard drive on it to where I can record stuff. If I do see something, trying to get some thermal imaging cameras because I want to know more and more. And also I mentioned to you that, we own a distillery in Tennessee, and we have ghosts at our distillery because the building was built in 1898. So we do ghost hunts there. And so I'm just into all kind of different type of, paranormal, whether it be ghost, aliens, Bigfoots, or, whatever else might be out there, I don't know.
It can be called, I guess, the world of the unexplained, like we had mentioned before. There's, the distillery. What town is that located in, Scott?
It's in Gainesboro, Tennessee, which is about 25 miles from my house. It's just south of Clay County. It's in Jackson County, right downtown on the square. And the building had been empty for 40 years before we got it. And it had been a car dealership from the early 1900s on up to 1980 when they closed. And so we hear, whistling, we hear our names, we'll hear all kind of noises in there. When we're doing the ghost hunts, we're able to ask questions and get the EMF meters to go off or the different, equipment they use. We have spirit balls there that we show people a lot, and we'll get responses on the spirit balls. But we know some of the spirits that are there all the time, and we find out new ones. There's two older ones and a child, and then we recently found out that there's another one, that guy that used to work there, and he was the blacksmith. The building used to be the livery stable for the hotel across the street back before cars. He became the lead mechanic when cars started coming in, and they turned it into an auto dealership. And so he was the blacksmith and then lead mechanic. And so it was about 3 or 4 weeks before we had the last ghost hunt, some of his family came in and mentioned it. And so during the ghost hunt, I was talking about him, and on the phones and stuff, it said blacksmith, and then it said Vincent, and that was the last name of the car dealership before it closed, was Vincent Ford. And so that was, affirmation to me that he was there because, he specifically said blacksmith, and he was the blacksmith, and then he was the lead mechanic for Vincent Ford.
Wow, that's really interesting. It sounds like there's a ton of history in that building itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and so the ghost hunters I have, they're on YouTube Travel Channel. They go all over the country. So, they have the equipment, and I just talk to them just like I do anybody else, the spirits there. I just say, hey, we're here. We just want to communicate with you. And we don't get upset or go like, oh, wow, look at that. When something happens like they do on TV, a lot of that for TV is sensationalized. So when we ask a question and we get a response, that's what we're looking for. We're not, going like, oh, this is crazy or weird, because that's what we're doing. We're investigating. Right.
Well, I will, what I'll do is get a link, for your place and put it down at the bottom of the YouTube channel. For anybody, if they're in that area, can click on the link and visit. And I have really enjoyed this, Scott. You've had a lot of interesting things happen and experienced some pretty neat things as well. We'll have to do this, stay in touch, and if something else pops up, you just let me know.
Okay, and I just encourage anybody out there just to do as much research as you can. My granddaughter, she was seeing people standing around her bed all the time, and she was scared. And I told her, I said, well, just let them know that you see them, and because they're just trying to communicate with you because they sense that you're sensitive and you can see those things. And so now they've gone away, So a lot of these spirits are just wanting somebody to know that they're there, So you'll hear things, noises or voices or something. But I just encourage people to expand on your knowledge about a lot of different things. I know I talked to you about a lot of things you didn't know when I brought them up. And I'm going to attach the picture of the Bigfoot print that's close to the distillery that the guy, shared with me. And that way you can share it on your page too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to put that down at the bottom with a link. Scott, I appreciate you coming on. I really enjoyed it. For everyone listening, if you've had an encounter, an experience, something unexplainable, shoot me an email with your contact information at thecryptidcrewpodcast@gmail.com. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel out. Thank you for listening, and God bless.